Oh, I think the S60 and the V60 are going to be a big success. They already are, there's no doubt. Whether it's whether it will last a long time, one might ask. Well, it's very interesting to do new shapes, lots of forms, lots of shapes on a car. But if we're going to be a Swedish company and be obviously visually Swedish or Scandinavian, as Stefan puts it, I think then we have to look at what are the rules of engagement of Scandinavian design. And over the centuries, it's been very clear that the simpler, the better, in that we won't be putting lots of lines on the car. We won't use decoration. Good Scandinavian products, furniture, architecture, kitchenware, household goods, all that sort of thing. A good Scandinavian product depends on simplicity of form, but added to beautiful materials. And that combination, I think, is what makes a real true Scandinavian design, which has a sense of timelessness. There are the pieces of furniture you buy today in the shops that are designed in Scandinavia, and they were designed in the 1920s, the 30s, the 40s, and they're still on sale today as brand new modern pieces. And I think it's because of that simplicity and cleanliness of the design and not a dependence on excessive decoration that they've stood the test of time. Now, we have to watch that we don't want to make something so simple it's boring, that's for sure. But we have to make sure that the proportions of the vehicle, the basic architecture, is right first. And then we will clothe it in a sculpted form, which, as I said, doesn't depend on lots of linear decoration to create the interest. And in doing it that way, keeping it clean but beautifully sculpted, I think we will create a difference and make ourselves stand out from the German or French or Italian competition, and especially Asian. If you look at the Korean cars and Japanese cars, they depend on lots of detail. If you go to Japan, all you have to do is look at a Japanese magazine, and it's visual mayhem to us in the West. It's just a complete clutter of images and characters. Japanese streets, they're just full of stuff. The buildings are all different. Every single building is different color, different height, different proportions. The streets are covered in wires because everything's above ground, obviously, because of potential earthquakes. The wires are everywhere. Again, it's to us, it's a visual mess. But to Japanese and to Asian people, they can actually look at detail and isolate the rest from their view. And that's why Japanese cars seem to have a lot more interesting shapes and details. Detail on detail on detail. Don't leave an empty space, put a detail in. And I think Korean cars have the same approach. Very exciting to some, but not the same as what we would be doing from a Scandinavian point of view. And I think it's those differences that make the whole automotive world as interesting as it is today.
The amount of time. You know what I mean?
Yes, I know what you mean. And I think if I asked you what are the most beautiful cars in history, you'll probably start to think of things like the E-Type Jaguar, some of the Pininfarina Ferraris, the 60s. There they were just pure sculpted form. If you remember the difference in the 60s or 70s, let's say, between a Pininfarina design and a Bertone design. Bertone got into that mode where they were stacking layers one on top of the other and putting lots of interesting details, whereas Bertone would sculpt the form and then draw the details into it. And it's those cleaner, simpler, beautiful forms that I think we remember more fondly than the much more detailed, excessively detailed cars from others. So I think just by thinking that way, the E-Type Jag is probably one of the most beautiful cars ever designed, and there was nothing to it. So I think that we're on the right track to make sure that we keep it clean, but it has to have that beautiful sculpture. I think if a car can remain relevant for a longer time, there's a number of benefits. It doesn't need an awful lot of facelifting to keep it in fashion, because fashion by definition is a short-term spectacle. I think it will last the course of its 6-7 years life cycle instead of the old life cycles of 12 years or whatever. And also, to be honest, a thing like the resale value of the car can remain much higher if it's still relevant 4 or 5 years from its conception. So I think there's an awful lot of benefits by creating that timelessness in a product.